conflict, especially rural dwellers who have understood and managed the situation properly using traditional methods. Dr. Abubakar pointed out that the crisis had assumed different called for deep analysis into unraveling the cause of the heightened unwarranted attacks by the two actors in the conflict and more innovative ways of addressing them. The National Assembly has appealed to state governors not to kill the ongoing constitution amendment exercise. The exercise is being carried out by the National Assembly and the 36 state houses of assembly. The leadership of the National Assembly meets play in Abuja. The Senate President, Dr. Ahmed Lawan, urged Governor Nasir El-Rufai to help lobby other governors for the adoption of the 44 bills forwarded to the houses of assembly in March. In a similar plea, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, said the National Assembly passed a draft of amendments to the Constitution and advanced them to the states as required. But with the current development, it is doubtful that the current constitutional amendments will be concluded before the expiration of the current legislative term. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has warned the electorate to desist from compromising the ownership of their permanent voter cards (PVCs). Doing so, according to INEC, is aiding illegal possession of the PVCs, which is an offence in the Electoral Act. The acting chairman of the Commission and National Commission the Federal Capital Territory (FCT), Nasarawa, Kaduna, and Plateau States, Malam Mohammed Aruno, gave the warning on Monday during the launch of Your Those Matters project in Abuja on Monday. He noted that some politicians have been buying PVCs and financially inducing unsuspecting voters to harvest their voter identification numbers. The federal government has approved the immediate relaxation of the COVID-19 safety measures and travel advisory, including the suspension of all pre-departure, pre-boarding, and post-arrival PCR test requirements. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman of the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 PSC, Mr. Bas Mustafa, made this known. According to him, President Muhammadu Buhari's approval follows the recommendations of the PSC based on clinical and laboratory evidence of a sustained reduction in COVID-19 infection and transmission across the country. The Presidential Steering Committee chairman therefore urged Nigerians to ensure they take their COVID-19 vaccinations as well as booster doses. You are listening to the Midday News on OGBC 90.5 FM. The US has imposed financial sanctions on four Zimbabweans, including the son of President Emerson Mnangagwa. It accuses President Emerson Jr. of being linked to the businessman Kudakwashi Tagweri, who is already under sanctions for alleged corruption. The Treasury Department says over the last 5 years, Mr. Tagware has used a combination of opaque business dealings and his ongoing relationship with the president to grow his business empire dramatically and rake in millions of dollars. President Nagagwa is already under US sanctions. The Democratic Republic of Congo has strongly denounced what it calls illegal presence of Rwanda and large journalists in Congolese territory. DR Congo's information ministry alerts that propagandist media were being escorted by the M23 rebel soldiers and Rwanda forces to multiple parts of eastern DR Congo. Rwanda has always denied involvement in the violence in DR Congo. Last week, the US asked Rwanda to end its support for the M23 rebel group, but Rwanda DR Congo. It came amid a UN investigation that found that at least 131 civilians in DR Congo died in a November attack by the M23 rebel group. Anti-government protesters described as deadly supporters of leftist former President Pedro Castillo took to the street in anger at his impeachment and arrest. Ms. Diana Gulati, his successor and former deputy, proposed bringing general elections forward by 2 years to April 2024 in response to the protest, but Mr. Castillo called Ms. Gulati's plan a dirty game. At least 7 persons have died in the clashes with the security forces since protests erupted over the impeachment of Mr. Castillo last Wednesday. India says its forces have clashed with Chinese troops in a disputed area along the border, the first of such after flare-up in more than a year. The nations have been working to de-escalate tensions since a major clash killed at least 24 troops in 2022. In 2020, but on Monday, the Indian Army said there had been clashes in the Tawang sector of Arunachal Pradesh state last Friday, the eastern tip of India. China is yet to comment on the standoff, but reports has it that an Indian army source said at least 6 Indian troops were injured. It added that commanders from both sides had held a meeting immediately to restore peace and tranquility. On sports, the Ogun State Governor, Prince Dapo Abiodun, has called on stakeholders to collaborate with the government to revive the sports sector in order to achieve more laurels in international competitions. He made a call on Monday while declaring open the third edition of the Governor's Cup for all primary schools in the state, held at the MQ Abiola Stadium, Abeokuta. He said the National Sports Festival, expected to be hosted by the state in 2024, will serve as a reference point in the history of the country. The governor assured that necessary machineries will be deployed in ensuring that the state comes first on the medal table during the annual sporting events. Still on sports, the World Boxing Association has officially ordered heavyweight world champion Alexander Usyk to defend his super title against mandatory challenger Daniel Dubois. Usyk currently holds the WBA Super, WBO, and IBF belts following back-to-back victories over Anthony Joshua. Dubois recently retained his WBA regular crown with a third-round stoppage win over Kevin Larina earlier this month despite hitting the canvas 3 times. Elsewhere, Joe Joyce is the WBO interim champion and continues to talk up a possible matchup with Fury, who has welcomed the chance to face the Olympian in future. The voter card is the only tool that guarantees your voting rights and sure you get yours. To end the midday news, another look at the major items. Vice President Professor Yemi Oshimbajo at the summit in Abuja said the current administration will continue to prioritize agriculture as food security plays an important role in national development. The leadership of the National Assembly in Abuja on Monday pleaded with the state governors to take swift action on the ongoing constitutional amendments exercise. We also heard that the state has imposed financial sanctions on four Zimbabweans, including President Emerson Mnangagwa's son, over corruption allegations. The Midday News was edited by Elizabeth Kukuriji and broadcast from AGBC, Abeokuta.